G'day! How are we doing? Hopefully doing very well and keeping health and safe. Doing all right on this side here. Today, we're going to have a bit of the alpha. We're going to have a bit of a preview on what Intel is working on for the next generation of Thunderbolt. What Thunderbolt? That is that USB Type-C connection. And we're starting to see a lot of devices starting to use this. Now, Thunderbolt is the Intel version. They actually did collaborate with the USB group to actually form the USB 4 specification as well. And we will just have a bit of a look at what Intel have released now. Now, a lot of the information is still undefined by Intel, so this is quite early stages of information. Now, first off is that next generation Thunderbolt is not the name of the next generation Thunderbolt. It's a bit of a funny thing. It's more of a description or placeholder for the next generation of Thunderbolt. Hopefully, they'll call it Thunderbolt 5 to make it less confusing and keep it simplified. Intel did say they're trying to keep things simplified for the naming scheme. So let's just call it Thunderbolt 5. Unlike USB 4, now that is just USB's just got a lot of weird names and very confusing as well. Like we've now got USB 4 version 1 and version 2, which we'll talk about as well. So next year, maybe Intel will actually release the actual name of the next generation Thunderbolt. But for the time being, we just refer to it as next generation Thunderbolt. But just make sure it's just not the actual name. Now, first off is that USB 4, we've got version 1 and version 2. Now, we're just going to bring this up here on what we have currently run. So we are currently on Thunderbolt 4, and that Thunderbolt 4 has a capability of 40 gigabits for the data transfer rate on both ways. Now, USB 4 version 1 also has 40 gigabits as well. Now, they've just recently given the specification for version 2 for USB 4, so USB 4 version 2 can go up to optional capacity of 80 gigabits. Now, with the next generation of Thunderbolt is also able to go up to 80 gigabits. Now, we'll have a little bit of a look on what this is. Now, there is a bit of a difference there. Now, with the Intel Thunderbolt, what Intel Thunderbolt is trying to do, it is more for computer devices is what they actually are aiming towards and trying to keep a good sort of what I would say a guarantee user experience for a computer environment. Whereas USB 4, that it can be other environments or other devices that could be on. So it could be mobile phones, it could be on docks or something like that. It is just more a standard, so it can use on different types of devices. Whereas Intel Thunderbolt is more designed for and also aimed at computer devices to give a better experience. So there is a bit of a difference between the two in terms of what guarantee is. And so it's really about user experience. So with USB 4 version 2, it can go up to a maximum capacity of 80 gigabits per second. Although there's a catch to it, and we'll talk a little bit later on. Now, with the next generation of Thunderbolt, it will also go up to a capacity of 80 gigabits per second as well. Now, it also has this really interesting feature, which will be a dynamically switch to be able to go up to a maximum capacity of 120 gigs for the capacity. Now, this is more for the display, and we actually haven't got, Intel hasn't really told us what's the trigger yet for switching to 120 gigs maximum capacity. And we'll go through a little bit of details on how that's really kind of done. With the USB 4 version 2, it also has that ability to go up to 120 gigs per second. Now, USB 4 version 2, now these are what we call, you'll see that we'll say is an optional of 80 gigs per second. So it's not really guaranteed. Whereas with the next generation of Thunderbolt, it is a guarantee of 80 gigs per second. And with the 120, again, it is optional as well. Whereas with the Thunderbolt next generation, it will allow it to go to 120 gigs per second for hopefully display. So this is to help drive those high performance displays. So this is more for those with the faster refresh rate monitors, as well as the high resolution monitors as well. So you can just drive through that. And we'll talk about some of the devices and advantages of that as well too. Now, how that is capably done to switch from 80 gigabits to 120 gigabits. So currently there are 4 lanes. And at the moment, of course, I have got 20 lanes, 20 gigabits per lane. So, and there will be 20 gigs times by 2 for the upstream and 20 gigs per lane, and that's 2 lanes for, and that times that by 2 will give you 40, and that will basically go for maximum capacity of 40 for the upstream and also the downstream as well. Now with the new standard, it will go from capability of going to the 40 gigs per lane. So we're doubling each lane, but we haven't got more lanes. We're just doubling the capacity of each lane. So we're going to go from 20 to 40. So that will mean we'll have 80 upstream and 80 downstream. Now, there will be a trigger to actually tell it go to, I've got some high performance display that's connected, and then it will switch one of the lanes, which is 40, to actually an upstream, which will then allow it to actually do high performance displays. Now, while it's driving that high performance display, say for example, it doesn't use the 120 gigabits, say you want to use the 100 gigabits, it does allow that 20 gigabits to actually be used for data as well. Now, of course, that's data on one direction, which is upstream. So you are limited down to 20 downstream. So just to let you know about that. Now, it does try to do priority over for the displays of the data, as what Intel have said. So that's kind of cool. That is trying to make sure you've got good displays before your data transfer rate. But still, this is going to be kind of cool and really nice to see what's going to happen. Now, we also is also going to, with this data new advantages of this new capability of this 80 gigabits is we're going to have much better for what I would say for storage, and there's also going to be advantages for people who run off eGPUs as well too. So that's going to be really good as well, because currently it's a bit of a gimp at the moment with the eGPUs on Thunderbolt 4. And with the next generation of Thunderbolt, now that will allow the full capabilities, and you'll see it won't be as badly bottlenecked as well too. So it's going to be good for eGPUs, and of course storage is going to be a big advantage, and of course with display as well. Intel have also mentioned that the next generation of Thunderbolt will be backwards compatible, which means you can actually connect your Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4 devices to the next generation, and also the USB 4 version 1 and version 2 as well. Now, in terms of the cables, anything under a meter, you can still run your Thunderbolt 4 cables, but anything above 1 meter in length, you'll probably need to get new cables for the next generation of Thunderbolt. So you can still hopefully reuse a lot of your cables. Now, there was also one thing, hopefully we can get a bit of a clearance on, as Thunderbolt Intel did say that they're trying to try and see if they can push this as well too, and that is having less confusion on the Thunderbolt cables if they are Thunderbolt next generation ready or not. As currently you'll see on the current generation, which is the Thunderbolt 4, you will see a number there. So this tells me that this cable here is Thunderbolt 4 certification ready. So hopefully they'll do the same thing with the next generation. Again, hopefully call it Thunderbolt 5, so they just put a 5 number just to make things easier. But that's what they'll say. They're going to try to keep things easier for us to, as consumers, to know if that cable is able to take the next generation of Thunderbolt. Now, as terms of power delivery, they haven't really give us a define yet, but more than likely it will stay the same on how much it can transfer the power delivery to another device. So this is just a bit of a preview on what Intel are working on. So again, a lot of the information is still not really defined by Intel. And again, we'll hopefully get a little bit more information on the next generation of Thunderbolt as they release it next. But still, it's nice to see what they're working on. I hope you find this video informative or enjoyed it. If you did, even support my channel, smash that like button for me. If you haven't done already, subscribe to my channel by hitting that subscribe button on the screen. I do try to upload a new video every week. And as always, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. And I'll see you next video.